Games Workshop don't want you as a customer. And I'm not saying that as a hyperbolic way of saying that we should try to boycott GW over the recent massacre of fan animations. I'm saying that because they literally don't. We are no longer Games Workshop's target audience. Oh, they'll continue to take your money, absolutely, for a good decade yet. But the Games Workshop of tomorrow is going to be focused on toys. It's going to be focused on subscription services. And it is going to be focused on selling its setting to other large entities. The Marvels, the Hasbros, and yes, potentially even the Disneys of the world. At first, I reckon this will be in the form of licenses, as we've already seen with Marvel, but I would not be at all surprised if at least some of the higher level executives of GW are starting to think about how much money they could get by selling out the whole damn thing. After all, what would you as a company do to make yourself as appealing a purchase prospect as possible? You might be increasing the prices during a period of increased sales due to certain worldwide events. You might be creating a subscription service to heighten up the numbers. Look at all of these subscribers. Look at all of this income guaranteed each and every month. You might even decide to relaunch one of your most popular product lines, like the Space Marines, with a slightly different coat of paint, created by a certain warp squirrel. Yeah. See, the fan animations thing and GW's incredibly aggressive approach to it, to me, was the last piece of the puzzle that finally made it all kind of begin to slot home. And, if you will excuse me, a bit of gallows humor, because if you can't laugh at this, what can you do? I remember I saw this post and I saved it immediately, because I knew it would age like a bloody tobacco advertisement. Now, granted, this is from a left-wing meme site, with such cutting commentary like these, for example. Obviously, it's primarily focused on attacking the fandom rather than the corporation, but such is modern-day leftism, I do suppose, and granted, considering the background of the site, making the educated guess that they might be ridiculously mistaken on something would not be the most lengthy leap of logic, yet, nevertheless, I flatter myself by believing that over the years, I've developed a certain sense to smell the bullshit, if you will. And so, when it was announced that the creator of Astartes would go work for Games Workshop officially, and incidentally also deleted all of his YouTube videos due to a contractual agreement with Games Workshop, a few alarm bells were already starting to ring. But like a small, innocent child in Hiroshima, looking up at the single bomber in the sky, I thought to myself, how much harm can it do? After which I was taught a swift and stinging lesson in the value of pessimism. I even remember when I made a video about it just after it happened, I was trying so hard to be optimistic because on the face of it, it looked like a great thing. A man with proven technical brilliance, drive and passion partnering with $1 million corporation should surely produce something amazing, right? And the scorched field that is fan animation today is, definitely impressive in its own macabre way. It started long before that, though, with the death of creativity. Though, before we get into that, let me give a quick plug to a friend of mine who hasn't run out of creativity just yet. The art you can see in the background was created by Under Radar. He is one of my long-term artists who created the lovely Arch on Butter image I use for my second channel. And he has a Redbubble page where he is selling his designs on t-shirts and various anti-nudity paraphernalia. So, if you are in the market for some clothing, consider giving it a look. Link in the description down below. And yes, of course, that is a certain call in the background there. Now, to get to the point here, the death of creativity. This is something that has been plaguing GW for quite a while now. And many have pointed out that one of the potential reasons for GW making the frankly absurd move of alienating the community and kneecapping their own advertisement by shanghaiing fan animators and banning all animations is because they are, in good old plain English, butthurt and jealous. Because frankly, these days, the fan community is producing content that is simply just better than what they are making. Compare Astartes to the Ultramarines movie. Like a plate of freshly vomited forth cat puke with a crunchy side bit next to a first-class steak. And yet, you are apparently asked to choose between the two. Until GW, of course, took that choice away and locked them both behind a curtain, and then asked you to simply pay and then be offered up whichever piece that they felt like, of course. And it's far from the only field in which GW is lagging further and further behind the pack. Like an asthmatic sled dog, GW has completely lost touch with their own universe. Their homepage is covered in cartoony shit and nonsense brighter than a My Little Ponies fan page. And do not even get me started on the Primaris and the Gathering Storm. The plot twist literally no one asked for. Setting aside for a moment the walking deus ex machina that is the warp squirrel named Cole and his hundreds of thousands of stashed away super soldiers, let's just take a look at what the whole thing actually did, shall we? Cadia is of course reduced to interstellar dust and debris, one of the most beloved planets and most commonly fielded type of the Imperial Guard, at least visually, wiped out over the course of 2 pages, cause G-dubs needed a climactic thing to kinda just happen. Or in order to prop up one of the most roundly hated and ridiculed characters in the lore, Failbadon the Harmless. A character whose incompetence is as legendary as his armlessness. Oh no, you see, said GW. All those other failed crusades, the 10,000 years of abject incompetence, were all tactical victories. All according to the tarred 10,000 year plan, you see. It is a retcon so brutal and sudden, whoever came up with its head is still spinning. And it's not just Abaddon either. Look at what 40k is today. From the new boring paper cutout logo, to the tactical, rounded, hyper-modern edges of the Primaris Marines, to the very backstory of the Imperium. The old Imperium was on the permanent brink of annihilation, desperately struggling for simple survival against countless invading hordes beating down the crumbling walls of a faltering, diseased Imperium. One riddled with administrative incompetence. A top-heavy bureaucracy where trillions of soldiers were little more than barely understood numbers on a hazy data slate. Even the idea of technology was dying, as rogue priests chanted meaningless invocations at cogitators, even as their internals clogged up with dust and burning incense. It was grim dark. It popularized, indeed, the idea that stuff needed a little bit of edge, a little bit of darkness to it. Stuff that now is used in absolutely everything. Even Superman can't get a movie without killing someone these days. The Grimdark has been dragged into absolutely everything, which is a testimony to just how successful 40k once was. And yet, what has actually happened to it? Now, a Primarch is leading a massive crusade at the head of a Space Marine legion in all but name. The very realms of chaos is being invaded as repulsor gravitanks pour forth from the new cutting-edge factories overseen by the Warp Squirrel. And anti-gravitech is just the tip of the frozen mountain of wank. The previously beleaguered, ever-dwindling shield of humanity, the Adeptus Astartes, are practically overrun by thousands of literally bigger and better Space Marines in superior power armor, wielding superior weapons, along half a dozen new specialist Tunibu-named variants. Reavers, Hellblasters, and Incursors, all using tech the old Imperium couldn't even have dreamt of. This is supposed to be the Imperium's darkest hour? The galaxy is split in half, and yet the Imperium looks stronger than ever. It's a new vital force now, with new tech, new soldiers, and new leaders outperforming the old guard in every way, even as the once top-heavy bureaucracy is swept away by goddamn Reboot Gilliman. I remember seeing an article about a year or so ago which said, the future of 40k is not grimdark, but hope punk. And I laughed. At first I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to make a video on this because this is some stupid shit, but I was like, this is too dumb. This is so dumb, it's never gonna happen. This is absurd. This is a crazy person who has no idea what 40k is, and yes, here we are. And suddenly it doesn't seem quite so absurd anymore. One could argue that this is simply the story evolving. God, how many times I've warned against that. Like, don't ask CW to progress the storyline. They don't know what they're doing. But, oh well. Details, I do suppose, but it is unmistakable that the tone and tenor of the setting has changed drastically. It has become a lot less of the grim dark that it once was, presumably to try and broaden the appeal. Forgetting, as usual, that if you have a thing that is popular and grows ever more popular, then generally speaking, changing it into something that it is not will not make it even more popular. If anything, you are likely to murder what it was that people were actually attracted to in the first place. And another wonderful example of that is Kislev in the new Warhammer, which God only knows if we'll be seeing anytime soon. Probably not, if GW can be trusted on it, as they keep saying that it's a long way off yet. God knows what's taken them so long to simply just re-release a rule set, but of course, the actual reason why it's taking forever is because they are wanting to transform the entirety of Warhammer from the tippy-most top to the very most dwarfish bottom. They want to make it into Age of Sigmar, as thoroughly demonstrated by Kislev. It used to be a fairly low-tech, low-magic nation, a bit of a mix of Poland and Russian Tsardom, with the Tsarina Katarina, of course, being the only true ice wielder in their army, with only a handful of other ice wielders shut away in reclusive monasteries. It was very down-to-earth and fairly historically inspired, with local boyars recruiting groups of men to fight off localized chaos invasions. And yet, the new variant of Kislev has entire units of magical warrior women wielding weapons made out of magical ice. Even the High Elves would be hard-pressed to copy that nonsense. And Tsar Boris, who was such an outstanding Tsar that he was able to ride upon the great back of a bear, has now been completely sidelined as just a thing. Tsar Boris' incredible feat of training and taming a bear is now just commonplace. Bear cavalry is a thing in the Kislev armies. Indeed, bear chariots and massive elemental bears made of ice are a thing as well. Instead of having this fairly cool, unique, and interesting historical kind of dark, gritty setting, we now have Ice and Bears, the faction, where everything has to be either ice or a bear or both. They couldn't have missed the point of Warhammer Fantasy any more if they had tried. And I am sure they tried very hard already. But on the flip side, can you imagine something better to sell to the new customer base, to the casuals, than bear cavalry, than ice magic wielding warrior women with ice magic spear-tipped weapons, than ginormous ice bears wielding ice as a weapon, armored in ice. It's no longer Warhammer, and 40k has already suffered a much similar thing with its own mini end times in the form of the Gathering Storm. It was just a little bit too profitable to throw out of the window entirely. Instead, it'll simply just be replaced piecemeal by new, rounder, more newbie-friendly variants of the old favorites. And I fear there's not a single goddamn thing we can do about it. Because in a way, Games Workshop is correct in doing this. Their time as the undisputed hegemon of tabletop gaming is coming to a close due to the introduction of 3D printing technology, which gets ever more effective and user-friendly by the day, and by ever-increasing competition as well. The simple fact is that in today's world, people can create very high-quality miniatures already from 3D printers of their own and sell it on the web for far less than GW sells them at. Simple fact again is that GW's products created in plastic, etc., or resin, it's cheap. It is not that difficult to make with modern day technology, and they are making an absolute killing on their products, which in turn means that there is a huge gap in the market for someone able to sell a product of similar or perhaps even better quality, but at an actually reasonable price. Meanwhile, GW is therefore going to move away from that and into bigger and better things, much to our detriment. As often is said with these things, I do hope I'm wrong, but I very much so doubt it. Consider this my prophetic view into the future. We'll see how much of it comes true and what, if anything, I am indeed wrong on. What do you guys think, though? Is this a little bit too doomsday, perhaps? Or have you started to see the pattern as well? All of the little pieces, what used to seem like individual things, the AOSing of Kislev, the murder of fan animators, the weird pricing structure, and the Hasbro executive. Many, many pieces. Many pieces, all fitting so beautifully together. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for listening, and I hope to see you all again soon. And also, if you made it this far, again, remember to check out Under Radar's Redbubble. There are some awesome products there, and I am sure it's far better than being outside naked. Have a good day.